Hello from me, Dina Marais. I'm the founder of Soul Purpose Publishing and Coaching. I'm a certified quantum leap transformation coach specializing in soul alignment, supporting you to create your dream business and life in harmony with your soul essence, and host of the Soul Purpose Bliss podcast. Wherever you listen or watch this, please subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. And before we start, I want to remind you to get my free ebook, Cultivate Soul Alignment to Manifest Your Dream Life and Business at bit.ly/Dina Soul Alignment. Today, my special guest is Claudia Monacelli. Do I say that correctly?
Yes, you said it perfectly, just like an Italian.
And she's the CEO of Multiple Voices. And you know, for me, her company name is a metaphor for all her amazing talents and skills. Claudia is a professor. She's an interpreter and consultant for the US and Italian governments. She's also a psychic medium. And she trains actors to use their voice effectively. Wow. Yeah. We are welcome to this.
Thank you so much for having me, Dina.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure.
Yeah. And we are really honored to have you on the Soul Purpose Business Bliss podcast. So tell me, Claudia, you have so many amazing vocations. Which one would you say is your soul purpose, and how did you discover it?
Working with my voice, I think. Working with my voice, and that's why. Well, being an interpreter, that's what you do, really. And I can remember as even the first initial conferences, people would come back to the booths, these glass booths, soundproof booths, and they would say, "Oh, what a very familiar voice! What a very confidential voice!" You know. And so this went on, and then I started actually because I also have a podcast, and it started because I was writing a book, The Magic of Pleasure Seeking, and I originally entitled it as Pleasure Seeking because I would wake up, use my iPhone, and start reading out chapters of things that I was writing just to hear if it would work, out loud. And then after I got tired of talking to myself, and so I've changed it to the name of my company, Multiple Voices, and then have different series. And got serious about sound, but I dabble with ASMR, this relaxing technique that you see often on YouTube, on my YouTube channel as well. And I like to read out loud, and I'll be reading, even just to read passages of the Bible or back-to-back English, Italian passages of a novel, it suits me to do it. It really relaxes me, and I hope people who listen get relaxed as well.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, and we definitely agree there, our voice and our words are absolutely magic. It is such a metaphor for our expression.
Yes.
And if I see in what different ways you use your voice, it's absolutely awesome.
Yeah. And what I used to say is, I always used to hear that the eyes were the windows of the soul. Mm-hmm. But I think it's the voice that really gives you an insight into who you're talking to. When a person opens their mouth, let's say I had a sister who was a hairdresser, and she would always say, Claudia, you know what somebody is like if you see their head, how it is. And I would say, no, come on. When they open their mouth, that's when you really know what they're like. And it's so telling. A person's voice is so telling. You can see and hear if they slept very much, if they're a smoker, what kind of activity they had the night before, and their general health situation at the time. Very, very difficult to control that over a microphone.
Absolutely. And of course, their vibration, hey? The energy vibration comes
vibration, right.
In their voice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. Yeah.
So talking about voice, and of course, that's very apparent in relationships. And I see you talk about the power power and relationships. Tell us a little bit about that, Claudia.
Okay. There's I'd like to say that everything is about power, but in the sense of play. All right, I'll qualify that. So if um you're an old friend of mine, Dina, right? We've known each other for over 30 years. And we still have a little bit of animosity between us. We live at a distance. We're the same age. We like the same things. At times, even when we were younger, we would even exchange our boyfriends, things like that. And so there was always a little bit of sort of competition, right? And after so many years, we get together and we cross the continents and we have a dinner together. And during that dinner, there's a conversation. And of course, none of us want to steal the limelight because, or else then the other person wouldn't have the opportunity to shine, right? And in language, I see this as a game that we play. When you give somebody, you cede your power, you cede the floor, actually, by stepping back and you give them the limelight. It has to do a lot with perspective and where you stand, actually, your stance in your language. Have you ever noticed, for example, in a couple, when one is very, very ill, right? They're arguing all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. All of a sudden, the male falls ill and the female companion or the male companion go and just cuddle up and help them. And it seems that it's like a dynamic equilibrium that when one is always so sad, the other becomes happy and also powerful. And it's very, power is dynamic. It's a dynamic equilibrium unless there's no game involved. We're not playing games. For example, I say to couples, so let's follow game theory. Game theory says that if you want to play, none of you can win because the game ends, right? So you have to let the other win a little bit, then you win, and so on and so forth, unless you are in the war zone, literally on the field, on the battlefield. But power is a very strange thing. There's so many different forms of power. There's economic power. There is military power. Many of the forms of power overlap, obviously. And ideology is sort of an umbrella term that covers power. This is what I study in language, power and ideology. And ideology has nothing really to do with religion, but there too, it's a matter of stance. What you believe through the force of your words or through the lack of your words. If there's something that you don't say.
Yeah.
It's
of course, it's the inner power as well. Hey, your inner power, that is the most precious power that we have, is to connect to that inner power, our connection to God and to source. And of course, to really buy into that so that it guides us in our lives.
Yeah, this is a completely different argument.
Yes, totally.
But the same logic holds if you're working with another person. You're able to cede your power because you are linked to a higher power. And that doesn't matter to you, you see. So you can see how, I don't want to say spiritual because spiritual is a word that gets tossed around a lot, but how connected a person is to their divine source by the way they act and interact with others. Well, one of the keywords in the title of your podcast, Bliss, was curious for me, and I wanted to ask you where did that word come from when you were giving your podcast a title?
It's all about that connection with source. It's all about, that's the ultimate thing that we are seeking. And and when we have our soul purpose, really feeling that and aligned to our true self, then we experience bliss. Then we have that ultimate amazing emotions that drive us. Our self-image is absolutely intact and beautiful and powerful and confident. and we realize that we are unconditionally valuable. So
Yeah.
all of that makes us bliss. We don't seek for stuff external to make us joyful. We find it inside.
Yeah, yeah. This you said an interesting concept, this self-image. Probably self-image is probably at the basis of most difficulties that a person may have.
Yes.
Not power, not any. It is their relationship with their selves.
Yes.
And
that is the driver, hey, of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is something that we could all stand to work on a little more. Yeah.
I don't think there's a destination for that one. It's a continuous process
Continuous,
of involvement, hey?
It is, yeah, continuous, yeah.
Claudia, coming back to everything that you do, and especially the voice as well, tell us about you as a medium.
Okay. Well, I'm a trance medium, and what that means is that a light trance medium, that means that I concentrate. I don't like to use the word meditate, but I concentrate and I receive messages directly. And by far, I opened my YouTube channel in 2015. And I started out as a card reader, reading crystals, doing all those things. But then when I, wanted to, I had the sensation and the message came that I needed to start doing these live, because there were a lot of souls that were earthbound and they needed to be, ritualized away. And so I started doing that. And hence, when you do it publicly, you take on a lot of other work comes to you. People come to you to help them contacting someone that dear to them that has passed. And it is one of the most fascinating things that I do, because you are in this situation, and I can't do it for more than 45 minutes at a time. But what happens is, inevitably, you bring forth, you have information that emerges from you that you could never possibly know about the person who had passed, or the person who was asking or speaking to their loved one. And but not only that, it's the sensation that you have done something worthwhile. That is something, because there's especially in the United States, there is difficulty in understanding what death is. It's never embraced. It is something you never talk about. It's like politics or religion. It's one of those things that you don't speak about. And that's a difficult hurdle to get over, especially when you know that the end is, in this life at least, comes, and we embrace it, and so that is difficult. And I realize that even my followers, my subscribers changed once I started doing it online, because it varied into other areas of the world who had a different philosophical background or a spiritual background, and believed different things with regard to a nation that is, very dynamic, forward looking, and never looking to past as if a past life could exist, but it's we all are made of flesh and blood, and we all know that this cycle comes to an end, and yet it is still not the factor that makes people feel similar. It's still, people fight that, which I find, on the one hand, fascinating, on the one hand quite depressing, quite distressful. But
I also believe, Claudia, that we've been conditioned that way.
Well, yeah, we have,
to fear death.
Yes, we have, but now death. Yes, of course, and we do still. I mean, I personally, I can remember years ago, it was maybe 15 years ago, when I had a lump in my breast, and my mother had just passed, right? And I went, and when I went for the examination, and they took a sample, that evening, I cried my eyes out, asking for my mother,
Mm.
calling my mother. And it was nothing, but still the fear that becomes you, overcomes you. But with the current COVID situation, I don't like to say, I'm not sure if I can say post-COVID yet situation, that has changed.
We must manifest that.
Manifest post-COVID.
Yes.
People have started looking at death differently all over the world. That has begun, but yet it's not taken root, not in the United States. People still feel fearless. They feel, it's interesting to see how people react to such a plague, of that kind.
There's actually also, of course, a whole new conversation,
right,
in terms of looking at this whole thing in a whole different way. But I mean, let's not go down there now.
There's so many different ways to look at it.
Yes. So talking about the mediumship and the power and relationships and everything that we are, I also work with shadows. We all have our shadows. And how do you,
I was just going to say, how do you work with shadows? What does the shadow represent for you? So
the shadow represent for me anything that's limiting you, a limitation, belief, a referent event that you had as a childhood. It may even come from a past life, but I don't work with past lives. I work with only people here. But shadows represents for me anything that holds you back from being your natural self, your true self. And it's of course the perception of those, the perception of how we see them. And what I do is I help them to add new meanings to it. And to see it differently so that it doesn't hold them back, but they can actually release them.
Yeah. I see it partially in that way, but also I see shadows as being part of ourselves, always will be part of ourselves. And if we realize that, because we're made up of, like I mentioned before, dynamic equilibrium. And of course, I mean, the shadow self, in your definition, what limits us in divinely speaking, I would imagine, right? My shadow also tells me, certain days that I'm good for nothing, and that I'm just, the ugliest person on earth, So
in other words, the ego.
Well, at times it could be, mixed with our ego, but my take on it is that we need to understand that and dance with it. It will also be, the shadow, something that brings me down a path where I should not go, because maybe I'll get hurt, but my curiosity brings me there. And I do like so much to go there. And so I dance around the necessity of not going there and going there. Sorry for the noiseless construction in front of my house. And that's how I see the shadow today. I'm sure that will be refined in the future. It shifts just like shadows do. Yeah.
Yes, they do, definitely. And for me, the shadow is that false self, is that conditioned self. That tells you that you are no good, it's to keep you in your comfort zone, and to not let you out of it. And our subconscious mind that has been conditioned in that way, of course, has the intention to protect us. But it's, of course, for us to realize that was great for me as a child, but now I need to venture outside of this. And of course, we can talk for hours about this.
Of course.
A last question I want to ask you. You are doing so many amazing things, Claudia. How do you find the time to do it all?
I start gravitating towards things that I like, things that make me happy. It's my happiness and pleasure are my, let's say, my barometer, because I've realized that I'll be much more productive if I really enjoy doing something. and that's why, that's how. And I guess being an interpreter, there was a natural propensity to do that. I grew up in a bilingual atmosphere, you know, a cultural background. And so that, I don't want to say it came easy, because you have to study nonstop. Studying nonstop. I used to work for the State Department, and once it was a tax specialist, once it was a politician, once it was, you know, an art, a museum that you had to, and you had to, your vocabulary constantly had to change. And so there's a lot of work there. But still, I like challenges. I really do like
grow
challenges.
and expand, eh?
Yeah, and learning. I seem to be drawn to things that are difficult, because I need to conquer that, you know, and then feel so good at once I have. And if it doesn't work, then I just let it go. I just leave it behind.
Oh, that's awesome. Claudia, this has been such a pleasure talking with you.
For me too. For me
Tell
too.
me, if people want to reach you, what is the best way?
I have two websites. One is with my name, Claudia Monacelli.com, and that's my professional voice work and my authorship, my books. And the other is the psychic medium, which is Christelle Martinet, ChristelleE.com. Oops, Christelle Martinet, MartinEtte.com. And Instagram, my Instagram presence is growing now, and that is probably the best place to find me. The Instagram handle is The Magic of Pleasure Seeking, all attached, The Magic of Pleasure Seeking. I'll be going live there.
I love that, The Magic of Pleasure Seeking.
Yeah, The Magic of Pleasure Seeking. Yeah. I'll be announcing when pre-orders for the book will be coming out. So I'm looking forward to that. Waiting.
Oh, that's awesome. So you've already written it? It's done? It's
Oh, just about, unless, you know, the changes have to come in. So I'm waiting for the changes to be made, you know, and suggested, and we'll see. Oh,
that's beautiful. Claudia, thank you. I know that everyone listening to this is really going to have a grand time. And yes, go and explore, go and find Claudia on Instagram, and we can all do with The Magic of Pleasure Seeking, because it raises our vibration and we allow in more good for ourselves. And of course, for your voice work, your books, and all of that, you will find on the website. So I'll have all the links in the description of the podcast.
Thank you, Dina. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.